At any moment the Pope could be arriving, so we will not go to a break. This is President Weizman now, Ezer Wiezman, awaiting the arrival of the Pope, as we all are. This will mark also a turning point. In 1964, when Paul VI visited here, we should share with our viewers and listeners, he refused to mention the State of Israel. Of course, at that time, no diplomatic relations existed between the Vatican and Israel. This is a new event. It happened in 1994. The Israeli president did go to Megiddo to meet with the Pope, at least in an unofficial way. But Israel was, at that time there was no, as I said, no formal relations, and the Pope did not mention the Israeli state by name. Since that time, there of course has been an enormous growth in the closeness between the Israeli people, the Jewish people, and the Holy See. In 1986, the Pope visited that synagogue that we mentioned earlier. In 1999, of course, the juridical status of the Church in Israel was ensured in an agreement. And here's President and Mrs. Weizman, whom we saw greet the Pope in Tel Aviv when he first arrived, here awaiting him outside this, the place where they will meet. I'm not certain of this locale. I imagine it must be the either the President's residence or the capital of state there. It appears to be the presidential residence, I'm being told. Cardinal Etchecarre there in the middle of your screen, about to take his place. And of course, central to all of this is Jerusalem, and who should control Jerusalem. The Israelis contend that they should control it, and do at this point intensely secure city. The Vatican has always viewed it as an international city that should be shared by people of all three faiths, monotheistic religions, who share this place. Father, do you think there's any hope that this will be a shared international city at some time soon?
Well, as it stands now, although the Israelis are very conscious of the need for their security, as they should be, because right now Israel is a stable country where we as Christians can go, as pilgrims can go, and be treated well and work out the pilgrimages we have. So the idea of being international, it has been, and it is at the same time. Maybe there's not a document saying so, but it is actually a living, active unity of many different peoples, of many different backgrounds.
Pope's car now arriving. Interesting, I was reading an interview recently with Father Yeager. Father Yeager is a Franciscan priest who teaches at one of the colleges in Rome. He is a Jewish convert and a member of the Holy See delegation to the bilateral commission with Israel. In this interview, he was mentioning an interesting fact that the agreement, the 1993 agreement between the Holy See and Israel, was only made public in 1999, and that the second agreement regarding the juridical status, the legal status of the Catholic Church in Israel, was ratified in February of 1999, but has yet to be published officially. So there seems to be some interest in making sure that these agreements aren't made public. I assume there are some who would be inflamed, Orthodox concerns that might be inflamed by the publishing of these documents. Yes?
The other thing, too, is We live in a world today where we want everything now, everything very quickly. You have a headache, you take a pill. You have difficulties, you go to whatever, medications. So the idea is this is going to be a very, very long process. We're talking about 2,000 years of shared history.
Father Yeager also points out in this interview that the Church hopes to request a revision in the way in which Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church are presented in Israeli school curricula and official speeches. Interesting request there. John Paul II now between President and Mrs. Weizman on their way inside. We'll let you listen to some of the welcoming band here. The Pope now entering the presidential residence here. He seems to be assisted by a rabbi now. I'm not sure. I take that back. And there is a waiting assembly in an adjoining room. Packed house for this meeting between President Weizman and His Holiness John Paul II. Looks as if they're redirecting the cameras now. Security is pushing what appears to be an Italian camera crew off to the side. I hope the camera we're watching all of this unfold before is not similarly moved. We shall see. Once again, I don't think we will hear prepared remarks from His Holiness here. The only speech he's scheduled to give is at Yad Vashem, a little later today, following this visit actually. In a little more than about 45 minutes, the Pope is scheduled to arrive in Yad Vashem. We'll see if he remains on schedule. Cardinal Sedano, with his back to us, and the Cardinal to the left on your screen is Cardinal Etchecarre, head of the Jubilee Committee. It appears the Pope is seated. Oh no, there he is. He's still making his way on a dais. And as far as the Church is concerned, again, we can't repeat this enough. This is really the crucial issue and the bone of contention, if you will, between the Palestinians and Israelis at the moment. The Church believes Jerusalem, whatever its political future, should be a shared city and not divided. And the Church is pleading on an international level to adhere to the UN principles, safeguarding the city's religious and cultural heritage. Of course, not long ago, Bethlehem 2000, a declaration was signed, ensuring the state of, underscoring rather in the international sphere, the importance religiously and culturally of Bethlehem. No such document forthcoming on Jerusalem. In this interview I was mentioning earlier with Father Yeager, the Franciscan who was on this, the Holy See Commission to Israel, he insists that perhaps West Jerusalem could be the Jewish capital and East Jerusalem the capital of Palestine, which is, of course, certainly a wish of the Palestinians at this point. We'll see what happens.
I think we remember, too, that Israel, as it is today, was born out of the United Nations resolution in 1948. So their existence came out of a worldwide attention and a worldwide concern. So as they have been dealt with very nicely by the world, hopefully also the Palestinians and other peoples that want certain rights will be dealt with too from the international community. Because we are a very small world, we're getting smaller, and we have to have lower the fear and anxiety and mistrust and trust one another. And that's what Jesus came to teach us too, that fear is useless, what is needed is trust.
Mrs. Weizman now talking to the Pope. Very happy John Paul II. This could almost be a scene at a cafe if they weren't before a whole crowd of people. There's for those of you listening in, joining us via AM, FM radio shortwave. This is EWTN's live coverage of John Paul II in the Holy Land. This is his meeting with President Weizman. President Weizman of Israel. He's on a dais in front of a large group of people, but the way President and Mrs. Weizman are talking to the Pope, one would imagine it was a private meeting.
He looks quite strong too. He's got a certain engaging character about him, and his left hand shaking perhaps a bit.
Let's see if we can hear any of this. There doesn't seem to be a clean audio feed, but we'll listen in and see if we can pick up any of this for you. Yeah, we're not getting any audio from the event. There's no microphone there. We're simply watching the two leaders meet. They may be at an adjoining room actually. Yes, we now have video of a large meeting room. It appears the President, Mrs. Weizman, and the Pope are meeting at a side room, not unlike what we saw with the Israeli rabbis just moments ago. The Pope meets privately for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then he goes in for a very brief public welcome. And then it's off to the next event. Probably the most watched event of the day will be the next one, the visit to Yad Vashem, the memorial for the Holocaust, the 6 million Jewish lives lost there. Of course, the Pope has his own memories of this time, friends lost in the Holocaust, and his own homeland of Poland. Many Polish, nearly 6 million Poles sent to the gas chambers and the death camps of Nazi Germany as well. So this is a moment of history that is not lost on the Pope, and one that he has great familiarity with. We are now looking at part of the papal entourage awaiting the Pope's arrival at this public ceremony, as we all are. While we wait, we want to remind you this is EWTN's live coverage of John Paul II in the Holy Land. We'll remind you also of our email address for those of you who would like to send in your questions or comments. You are watching this live. That email address is holyland2000, holyland2000 at EWTN.com. Again, it's holyland2000 at EWTN.com. We're just receiving a few emails now, and I'll share them with you. This is one referring to our replay of the private visit of the Nativity Grotto of His Holiness and the private Mass this morning in the upper room. I can't put into words the wonder of the beautiful private Mass in the upper room and the visit to the Nativity Grotto. One can only thank God for being alive at this time. I know the Blessed Mother was walking around making sure everything was flawless. I am sort of a shut-in alone in my apartment and don't ever travel by plane anymore, so this exotic TV pilgrimage is a blessing beyond description. That's from Anna Kavanaugh Morowinski. Did anyone else besides myself notice the baby's voice crying out when His Holiness was at the Nativity Grotto? I didn't hear that, but perhaps there was a baby upstairs in the main church. Another email: I was amazed and humbled yesterday when an American Jewish friend of mine apologized to me as a Roman Catholic for the recent less than friendly actions of some extremists in Israel in preparation for the Holy Father's visit. May God bless us all during this time of pilgrimage and help us all to recognize the need to ask forgiveness of one another. That's Barbara Springthorpe of Jupiter, Florida.
I think that again points to the personalization of the pilgrimage, that it's a call for all of us to, as we see these dignitaries and the heads of state perhaps meeting religious leaders from the three main monotheistic faiths, turning and reconciling, in a sense. We are called to do the same thing within our own families, our own extended families, our friends. Seek reconciliation, seek peace through conversion of heart.
It's rare to be able to see the Pope for an extended time in a private meeting like this. He is talking now to the President of Israel, President Weizman and Mrs. Weizman, but we do not see, we do not have any audio for you, unfortunately. Right, apparently there are no microphones on the primary participants here. President Weizman now introducing one of his cabinet members here to His Holiness. And this is a major sign, as we said earlier. This is a bit of recognition for the state of Israel. When the last time the pontiff visited this holy land, he did meet with the President of Israel, but Paul VI did so in an unofficial way. Today, this is an official visit. In recent days, this relationship has been somewhat strained due to the Vatican signing of a PLO agreement ensuring the holy sites in Palestine. But once it was explained, everyone realized that this was very similar to the one the Vatican signed with Israel. And in fact, aside from the mention that Jerusalem should be a shared city, there's really nothing controversial or out of the ordinary in the document, and tempers seem to have quickly subsided. Now John Paul II and President Weizman making their way into the public part of this meeting. The private meeting concluded. They will now go and greet those waiting in the adjoining room. When the Pope arrived here, President Weizman greeted him with a long speech. He was speaking in Hebrew. We now have a translation of that, and I'll excerpt from it. He said, "The spiritual center of the Jewish people is the state of Israel, and that it is important that the sons and daughters of the church understand the reality of modern Israel." He spoke of the terrible Shoah, that's the Holocaust, where 1/3 of the Jewish people were exterminated, and of the religious persecutions and anti-Semitism which the Hebrew people had suffered in exile. He praised the Pope for his contribution to the condemnation of anti-Semitism as a sin against heaven and against humanity. And he added praise for the pardon, the plea of pardon for the past actions committed against the Jews by members of the church. John Paul II now entering the public ceremony here. You hear the applause and greeting both he and President Weizman as they enter. As we heard from the rabbis earlier today, President Weizman, in welcoming the Pope, said Jerusalem is a sacred place for Christianity and Islam, but it will always be the heart of the people of Israel and the capital of the state of Israel.
אורחים נכבדים, מוזמנים יקרים, גבירותיי ורבותיי. נשיא המדינה עזר ויצמן ורעייתו הגברת רומה ויצמן שמחים לארח אתכם כאן בבית הנשיא בירושלים בקבלת פנים לכבוד הוד קדושתו, האפיפיור יוחנן פאולוס
The greeting
השני,
here is
במסגרת
entirely in
ביקורו של
Hebrew.
האפיפיור בארץ
The
הקודש.
thing to note is the...
Distinguished guests, dear
Oh,
friends,
here's an English
ladies and
translation.
gentlemen.
Let's listen.
The President of the State of Israel, Mr. Ezer Weizman, and his wife, Mrs. Roma Weizman, are most pleased to welcome you here at the President's residence in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, to a reception in honor of His Holiness Pope John Paul II as part of the Pope's pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Spectabiles hospites honoratissimi cari amici. Princeps Rei Publicae Israel Ezer Weizman, coniunxque eius Reuma Weizman, valde laetantur, quod vos hospitio excipiunt salutantque, hic in domo praesidali, Hierosolimis, capite Israel, die festo ad honorandum suam sanctitatem, Ioannem Paulum secundum, in peregrinatione ad terram sanctam. אורחים נכבדים מוזמנים יקרים, הטקס ייפתח בטקס נגינה. אני מתכבד להזמין את סולנית הנבל של התזמורת הפילהרמונית הישראלית, הגברת יהודית ליבר, להשמיע לנו פרלוד מספר 8 מאת קלוד דביסי. Ladies and gentlemen, we open the ceremony with a musical piece performed by the solo harpist of the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra, Judith Lieber. She will play Prelude number 8 by Claude Debussy.
Underscoring the hospitality of the Israelis, who are really known for their hospitality. We'll let you listen into this soloist. This is EWTN's live coverage of John Paul II in Holy Land.
אני מתכבד להזמין עתה את נשיא המדינה מר עזר ויצמן לשאת את דברי ברכתו. I now have the honor to call upon the President of the State of Israel, Mr. Ezer Weizman, to deliver his greetings.
Now, President Weizman.
I'm honored and happy to welcome Your Holiness to the Israeli President's residence in Jerusalem. In the 2 days that Your Holiness has been with us, you have no doubt been impressed by the beauty of the city. In front of you are seated Israeli ministers, judges of the Supreme Court, members of the Knesset, ambassadors of all countries which have diplomatic relations with Israel, heads of religious groups, Israeli dignitaries, and public representatives. With us is also President Katzir and Mrs. Herzog, Mrs. Or Herzog, the wife of the 6th president, and Mrs. Leah Rabin, the wife of Yitzhak Rabin. May his soul rest in peace. There is a question whether history makes a leader or a leader creates history. You, Your Holiness, without doubt, clearly leave your mark and influence on history. During the past years, we've been witnessing a progress of globalization. People from different countries, from different culture, and with different religions are drawn to one another. This is due to the modern technology. But you, Your Holiness, through your character, your conduct, and your personal influence, unite the hearts of humanity. We are in Jerusalem, the holy city, the eternal capital of Israel, a very important religious center for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the city of peace. Your visit to Jerusalem can contribute to peace, to friendship between Jews, Muslims, Christians, and between Israel and the Arab world. For 30 years, I personally fought in Israeli wars, and over the past 20 years, I am doing everything in my ability for the battle of peace. Israel signed peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan. Our borders with them are quiet. We have also reached agreement with the Palestinians, and I hope that we will soon attain permanent settlement with them. The large wound is Lebanon, and it is clear that the key to Lebanon is Damascus. I hope that the forthcoming summit meeting between President Clinton and President Assad will be successful, and we will be able to achieve peace both with Syria and with Lebanon. A comprehensive peace between Israel and her neighbors is the dream of every Israeli and all the people of the Middle East. Your Holiness will visit Yad Vashem today, and there you will unite with the memory of the 6 million Jews who were murdered in the Holocaust. Your Holiness has acted strongly against racism, against anti-Semitism, and I believe that your visit to Yad Vashem will contribute to the continuation of this important struggle. My wife and I wish Your Holiness good health and a continued success in this, your special visit to Israel.
אני מתכבד להזמין עתה את הוד קדושתו האפיפיור יוחנן פאולוס השני לשאת את דברי ברכתו. Ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honor to call upon His Holiness Pope John Paul II to deliver his greetings.
Mr. President, government ministers, members of the Knesset, Your Excellencies, I'm most grateful, Mr. President, for the welcome you have given me to Israel. To this meeting, we both bring long histories. You represent Jewish memory, reaching beyond the recent history of this land, to the people's unique journey through the centuries and millennia. I come as one whose Christian memory reaches back through the 2,000 years since the birth of Jesus in this very land. History, as the ancients held, is the magistra vitae, a teacher of how to live. This is why we must be determined to heal the wounds of the past so that they may never be opened again. We must work for a new era of reconciliation and peace between Jews and Christians. My visit is a pledge that the Catholic Church will do everything possible to ensure that this is not just a dream, but a reality. We know that real peace in the Middle East will come only as a result of mutual understanding and respect between all the peoples of the region, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. In this perspective, my pilgrimage is a journey of hope. The hope that the 21st century will lead to a new solidarity among the peoples of the world, in the conviction that development, justice, and peace will not be attained unless they are attained for all. Building a brighter future for the human family is a task which concerns us all. That is why I'm pleased to greet you, government ministers, members of the Knesset, diplomatic representatives of many countries, who must make and implement decisions which affect the lives of people. It is my fervent hope that a genuine desire for peace will inspire your every decision. With that, as my prayer, I invoke abundant divine blessings upon you, Mr. President, upon your country, and upon all of you who have honored me with your presence. Thank you very much.
ועכשיו, לסיום הטקס, אני מתכבד להזמין את אחד מאומני השורה הראשונה בזמר הישראלי זה יותר מ-30 שנה, הזמר הלאומי שלנו יהורם גאון. את יהורם מלווה בפסנתר אורי קריב, ואנו נשמע את השיר מעל פסגת הר הצופים. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude the ceremony, we shall listen to a song which belongs to the classics expressing the love for the city of Jerusalem. It is called From the Summit of Mount Scopus. It will be performed by one of the most prominent Israeli artists in the realm of song, our national performer, Yehoram Gaon. Uri Kariv is at the piano, and we listen to From the Summit of Mount Scopus, Me'al Pisgat Har HaTzofim.
Me'al Pisgat Har HaTzofim Eshtachaveh Lachapayim Me'al Pisgat Har HaTzofim Shalom la Yerushalayim Me'ad dorot Chalamti alayim Lizkot elirot Me'ore panayim Yerushalayim Yerushalayim Ha'iri panayich liveneh Yerushalayim Yerushalayim Mechorvotayich eveneh I stand alone on Scopus high and bow down my head to your beauty. I stand alone on Scopus high. Shalom, my beautiful city. 1,000 years we dreamt of your graces, of feasting our eyes on your holiest places. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, I never will leave you again. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Messiah will banish all pain. Desde la cumbre del monte Sofí, yo te saludo, Jerusalén. Vuelcan los hombres sus ojos a ti y anhelan la tierra, pero algún día miles de veces serás bendecida, tierra de reyes, tierra querida. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, yo no me alejo de ti. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, verás el Mashiach venir. Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, אני לא אזוז מפה. ירושלים, ירושלים, יבוא המשיח.
Distinguished guests, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony is herewith concluded. Thank you all for having been with us. You are now kindly requested to remain in your places until His Holiness, the President and their retinues have left. כאן אורחים נכבדים, מגיע הטקס לסיומו. תודה לכולכם על שהייתם עמנו, ואנא הישארו במקומותיכם עד צאת הוד קדושתו והנשיא מן המקום. תודה לכם.
John Paul II now saying his farewells to President Weizman, bringing to an end this meeting with the President, a courtesy visit to the President, not unlike what we saw yesterday with meeting with Yasser Arafat. The Pope paid him a courtesy visit as well near the end of his day yesterday in Bethlehem. President Weizman now introducing the Pope to various dignitaries. And this is EWTN's live coverage of John Paul II in the Holy Land, part of our continuing coverage of this papal visit. The Pope will make his way from this meeting to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. A lot of pressure being put on the Pope in recent days to apologize somehow for the actions of Pius XII, the alleged actions of Pius XII during World War II, some contending that he didn't speak out during the Holocaust. The Church has always maintained that Pius did everything he could. In fact, there was a quote I came across yesterday, the Pope saying, we should be proud of Pius XII. And even the Jewish historian Pinchas Lepide, by his own count, said Pius probably saved the lives of 860,000 Jews around the world by opening the doors of monasteries and convents up. This is Ms. Rabin, the widow of slain Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. He visited with the Pope in the Vatican in 1994 and established the diplomatic relations between Israel and the Vatican formally. Ms. Rabin there greeting John Paul II. Now they're in conversation, Ms. Rabin and the Pope. Obviously great warmth and affection the Pope has for the Rabins. It was that same year, 1994, when in October the Vatican began working on relations with the PLO. I have a dateline in front of me here. In 1997, the Pope dispatched letters to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and Chairman Arafat of the PLO to promote the Middle East peace process. Finally, in 1998, the Pope received Chairman Arafat for the first time, and that same year expressed his regret about the failure on the part of some Catholics to help those who were suffering the effects of the Holocaust. We're listening. This is the wife of Ehud Barak.
איפה ישראל? תשימו לב לי. כן. זה הרב רוזן. זה הרב רוזן. הרב רוזן. טוב. צבי, זוזו. רבותיי, אני מבקש. תודה.
Pope exchanging greeting, of course. One can imagine how many people he must meet every day. And these foreign travels are always so tiring for him. His schedule booked with very little time for rest in between. Though today it appears he has a bit of a lag before his interreligious meeting, which will be the last event we'll cover today. He has an interreligious meeting at the Notre Dame Pontifical Institute in Jerusalem. We'll talk more about that as the days go on. He is now en route to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial. And this much anticipated visit, the Israeli rabbis, the two chief rabbis whom you saw earlier, particularly Rabbi Lau, insisting that the Pope apologize directly for the Church's supposed inaction during the Holocaust. We will see what the Pope has to say once he gets there. The Pope released, and the Vatican rather, released a document, We Remember, a reflection on the Shoah, on the Holocaust. This document dates back to 1998, I believe. And in it, the Church expresses its profound regret for the failings of her sons and daughters, for their expressions of anti-Semitism. But the Pope is very clear in the document to point out that the anti-Semitism of the sort that fueled the Holocaust was a specific racial theory, clearly contrary to Christian teaching. The Nazi ideology was firmly condemned by the Church, most notably in the encyclical Mitbrenner de Sorge by Pope Pius IX, or the 11th rather, Pope Pius XI. That was drafted, incidentally, by Eugenio Pacelli, Pope Pius XI's secretary, who would later become Pope Pius XII.